Hello and welcome to Expansion Revolution podcast. This is OJ Matiba. I'm a pastor at Hillview Church, and I have the privilege of bringing the Expansion Revolution nuggets every day of the week to your home, your office, wherever you are. This is going to be an inspirational moment where we empower you through tools from God's Word that can help you to enjoy the best life that God has created for you. Thank you. Enjoy. Hello and good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. We are continuing our discussion on sluggards or lazy people versus diligent people. I hope it's an interesting series to you as it is to me. One of the things that you'd recognize is that in the world we have two types of people: successful people and unsuccessful people. Successful people are the people that we call diligent, and unsuccessful people, most of the time, the cause to that lack of success is because they have demonstrated or deployed themselves either slowly or found themselves doing nothing, and they end up in a position where they don't have nothing, which is a place we call the destination of the lazy people, and the destination of the diligent people is where success lies. Now, I want to close my discussion on the verse that we started reading, which is in Proverbs chapter number 12, verse number 27, because it says, "The lazy do not roast any game, but the diligent feed on the riches of the hunt." Now, I want to lay a very strong understanding of this proverb as it was understood in Israel for me to help you find the modern meaning of this text. Now, the etymology of the word used here for the diligent man, I've told you yesterday that it meant a diligent man was a man who was involved in the digging of the trenches to find gold. Now, the same word is also used with the etymology of the hunter, not the hunter, the farmer, who takes much more pleasure in standing in the thresh floor to make sure that the harvest that he got gets processed into finished products that will get more higher value. So if you look at these two words, you'll see that the diligent people of that time were associated with two important professions. Number one, mining, and number two, farming. Now, these two industries, farming and mining, they are normally characterized by two processes. The first one is that they all have a production stage, and the production stage, which leads to the production of raw material, requires more hard labor, requires more effort. And normally what is produced there is necessary for the second stage, which is the processing stage, where now you take the raw material and you turn it into a material of high value. Now, the difference in this text between the lazy person and the diligent man is that the lazy person can go all the way, as I've discussed previously, into doing all the labor and stops without processing the work that he has done. Now, the diligent person at the same time is the guy who takes pleasure on the processing aspect. As a matter of fact, there are scholars who argue that the diligent man does not get involved in the production of raw material. They are waiting for the farmers and other hunters to go hunt and to go plow and do the heavy work, and after they've done, they will get the product at a cheaper level, and then they will sell them at a high value and process them to gain a much more higher value. In your world, how are you doing things? Do you find yourself engaged much more in work that takes a lot of hard work but gives less results? Then you are likely to be a lazy person, because a diligent person takes pleasure in processing raw material rather than in going for raw material. I think that's key. That in your life, are you engaged much more at a first level of production, or are you taking what has been produced by others to enhance the value and get more value from it? I think that's the problem of Africa, if you are listening me well. That as Africa, we have a lot of products that we are producing. We are just good at producing raw materials, but we are never participating in the chain process of processing the raw material that we have. And therefore, eventually, would end in the destination of lazy people, which is poverty, rather than ending in the destination of wealth, which is where the diligent people are. And look at how developed nations do it. They come and take our raw material, and then they process it, and then they sell it back to us. And look at it again, if you go back to my previous teaching, again, when we started lazy people, we end up having to work for them in forced labor. So here's the first characteristic of a diligent man, is that number one, he processes raw materials. What are you processing right now? Maybe you are engaged in whatever field that you are in. In the chain of that process, are you in the developmental stage of primary production, or are you at the end level? Are you gaining the highest value, or are you gaining the lowest value? Diligent people always target to find themselves at the end of the production cycle where the value is higher. Number two, we see that diligent people are smart people. If you recognize in the text, you'll recognize that the guy who has brought the game is the lazy guy who brings the game, and then this game gets taken and he processes it and then he sells it. Yeah. And today in the world of work, we talk about smart ways of doing things. So diligent people are smart in approach. They don't believe in hard work as sweat the more. They believe in hard work as think the more about various ways of implementing a project that can give you a better value. And lastly, diligent people look for value. It is becoming so prime in our days that when we make decisions, whether you are buying a house, whether you are buying for a car, whether you are looking for, always think value. Because value is going to be what differentiates the poor and the rich. And value is going to be what separates the successful and the unsuccessful. And lazy people always think where there is more work, there is more money. But where there is more value, that's where there is more rewards. So take your time to recognize that God's plan for your life lies within the attributes of a diligent person. He who looks at projects and wants to get value, and he who looks at projects and wants to activate them or implement them at a smart level, which means less energy producing high impact. I don't know whether you know about the S-curve, that you want to use low inputs and get high level of output. Yes, it is possible. It has to be designed that way. But sometimes we do more hard labor and get less results. But if we want to become diligent people, we need to learn the art of roasting your catch. Don't just go out for things and look at them and spend a lot of energy chasing them, and you never take the energy to finish them, to create the finished product that can give you high value. Roast your catch. Don't be a lazy person. Be a diligent person. Thank you for joining us today. Make an effort in your daily activities today to make sure that whatever project that you are dealing with, you roast it. What does that mean? You process it to get the highest value out of it. Thank you for joining us today. Let's see you tomorrow.